I'm going to set this. I've got a seemingly impossible task here of 15 minutes for 3 paper submissions to be surmised with clear actions for you all to take away. I think my head is buzzing already this morning with what's been shared and the enormous task that's ahead of us. But from the optimism that Rupert's just given there, then we need to believe that it can be done. So government as a supplier, government as the government as a buyer. So I don't even know where to begin with this. So I'm going to start, Cath, with you, government as a user, government as a buyer, because according to your paper, Cath, I don't think it was. According to Cath's paper, it's a simple fix for our broken government tech procurement. So Cath, first if you can introduce yourself, but if it's simple, why hasn't it been done?
So I was one of the foundational leaders at the Digital Transformation Office back in the day when we were very excited about transformational digital government. The simplicity is that the actions are not hard. The difficulty is that the mindset needs changing, and I think that's something that was just referred to. So when you look at the ANAO's definition of procurement, it is the process of acquiring goods and services. And that kind of thing leads to the mentality that we've seen, which is it's bureaucratic, it's process oriented, it's about probity, it's about just getting the thing in through the door. I would like to suggest that procurement is the proactive life cycle management of supply markets, transparently reported, that deliver economic, social, financial outcomes that lead to better government service delivery, and also to better well-being of the people and communities. And you can't do that kind of thing from where we are now, and that's our big challenge.
Okay, so if there's one thing that we can take away in regards to an action to start to address that transition or transformation that's needed, what is it?
So our dear colleague and friend to many of us, Paul Shetler, used to say, first, answer the phones. First, do the simple things. Make the data transparent and make it accurate so that we can have more informed debates. Okay. Goodness me, right, okay, simple. You're right. Your paper, your title is absolutely right. It's simple. So I look forward to that happening in the next, 48 hours? Possibly less.
Oh, dear me. I'm going to jump now to Marina, because your paper, rules as code. Explain.
Fabulous. It's really quite another simple prospect of having our laws in digital form and early in the process. And not just laws. In fact, when we talk about rules, it's policy. It could be contract terms. Any if, really, in the if-then can, of course, be coded. So why aren't we doing this up front and then have that feed through to incredible economic benefits as well as benefits for individuals? We just heard about resilience and wanting to know what you're entitled to. You've just been flooded. Where do you go for guidance on what laws apply to you and how you can respond?
Recording in progress.
Fabulous. And so I'll end there. So rules as code, let's make them digital and make them digital up front and early on. It allows us to interrogate policy decisions. It makes us, we can ensure that the policy is reflected in the laws that are created up front rather than waiting for them to be tested in the marketplace later on.
But who needs to be involved in this process, Marina? When you say let's, who?
Yeah, the Australasian Society for Computers and Law is all about that multidisciplinary network of people coming together and sitting at the table. So instead of just having a drafter there working on analogue laws for a digital world, what we propose is that we have the coders in the room with them, we have the policy makers in the room, and work collaborative for, essentially the digital and the analogue or the human understandable version being created at the same time, early in the piece.
I mean, I think that there seems to be like a collaboration theme that's coming out today, right? And having those stakeholders together, which I don't think we're necessarily particularly good at a lot of the time, you know, and especially when we break it down from a federal level to a state level, and the different people in between. So I mean, it's you know, again, I think Rupert touched on it, you know, beautifully, you know, in our individual roles and conversations and relationships. You know, that's something that we need to be, you know, encouraging as a, you know, as a best practice really in regard, you know, in how we're going to get to, how do we get things done. But I think that that's you know, the concept of rules as code and what that means and how that applies and the impact it has. You know, it's language that we use within our industry, but you know, as a consumer, you know, as a citizen, you know, it's, you know, if I had to simplify, I want to be part of that conversation as well. How do I simplify it, you know, so I understand as a citizen what it means to me?
Luli, can I just not to quip about it, but
yep.
rules as code is the equivalent of Excel spreadsheets to numbers. So to words as
that I understand.
To numbers. You understand. Excellent. If that was code, it would be much simpler, and we'd be able to integrate that directly into our business rules within the corporations that we work. We can test government policy to make sure that it makes its way right to the end and is impactful. The potential is incredible. In fact, I started writing 32 pages of the benefits last night, and I thought, well, I should just talk about the passion we have for this. There are incredible benefits that feed right through.
Brilliant, brilliant. Lesley, I've got a question for you. What is needed for government to regain the initiative and traction on what seems to be intractable? Modernising its ICT effort such that it supports democracy.
Great, thank you very much. So a lot of the discussion so far has touched on this and made a basic assumption that we can actually do this within government. But when you look back over the last 20 or so years, all you see is patterns of intractability, failure, and in fact a lot of the things, if you look back at Gershon, you will see a lot of these things roll back. What Gershon had said back, you know, over 15 years ago, very little of it exists. And yet we think we can actually make changes. And a lot of what we're talking about in industry policy depends on government being actually getting its own act together and being that effective, and I won't use the word efficient because I loathe it, effective actor driving change nationally and for a greater community and individual benefit. So I would say there's 4 things. Firstly, we actually have to pull ourselves out of that gravitational well out of comfort and convenience and compromise, which is where we're at the moment. You know, it's very comfortable. Canberra's a terrible place to do technology policy from in many regards because we don't have any of the industry drivers here. You know, it's for all intents and purposes, I've been in and out of the public service, and I should, by the way, given my background, I'm at large, and I've done most jobs inside the public service. But really, it's not that different to when I joined over 30 years ago. It's very much the same process, very much the same mentality, same time frames. There's not that sense of what you can do, although there has been a loss resulting from technology about organisational memory has actually deteriorated, for example. So we've got to push ourselves out of that gravitational world. That's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to require a structural shock to the system. But then there's a second part, and you've got to remember that this is not a one-off. We do tend to have one single shot fire and forget solutions. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's not something that's going to fit in with an election cycle. It is not something that's going to be fit within, let's say, the 3-month consultation process I hear a lot about inside government at the moment. That's not enough. I mean, the EU, for example, goes for a period of around 10 years to do some of these structural changes. You've got 5 years of thinking and then 5 years of serious consultation, revisiting, rewriting, etc. But we think we can do it in 3 months. So just also reflect, you know, I think Sally Ann Williams made a comment a couple of years ago about the need for patient capital. We need the same here. We need the need for patient political capital as well. That's number 2. Number 3 is leadership. We tend to think inside government that leadership is a byproduct of the system. But if you look at the successful changes, and I point to things, you know, other things I do in defence and strategy field, things like the changes in the 1980s in defence were the product of, again, some intellectual capital from Paul Dibb. You can agree with, you know, what he did or not, but he put that in. You had Kim Beazley, so strong political leadership. You had, you know, Bob Hawke giving Kim Beazley all the top cover he needed, and you ended up seeing that come push through. But it's not just on the Labor side. I can point to ONA, which again came out of the Hypereal Commission. the Fraser government appointed Michael Cook. Michael Cook ended up with the strong support of both the Fraser and Hawke governments and made ONA into the institution that it is today. It took a very long time. So there's that third thing. And the final thing goes with that is the remit and purpose. The remit has been given to the leaders, this budgetary remit, because the financial framework shapes a lot of this behaviour inside government. Budgetary framework and so on, the remit to actually make those changes, to pull these things together. But that's got to be driven by the purpose. And if I hear the words that, things around, we're doing technological change for convenience or for efficiency, these are the seed and enabler of authoritarianism. It's got to be more than that. The number of times I hear that, we're doing this change because it's convenient to police. I'm sorry, we're a democracy. Individual rights and liberties matter. We need a rebalancing. And so that purpose has to be around what is it to be a fully emaciated citizen in a digital democracy? And those are the changes we need.
Simple. As Cathy said, it's simple. So I guess I'm just conscious of time. I think we've got a moment to ask just one more point each. So government as a buyer, government as a user. You're looking at it, Cathy, from a procurement point of view. What is the one thing that's really going to impact the societal change? At the end of the day, this is about us as a democracy, as you quite rightly say, Lesley. What's the one thing that we can do, affect, and you'd campaign for to have that impact and change that we need?
It's hard to say one thing because in a complex, connected world, we can't get down to one root cause. The idea of public accountability is central. Oh no, damn! I've taken Leslie's point. But public accountability is to stand up, to have the dialogue, to understand why decisions have been taken, to prove those up in the public sphere. That's really important. And any force which obfuscates, which puts lack of clarity in, that changes the dialogue, becomes more secret, is to be shunned.
So shall we throw the word transparency in there as well then?
Transparency, and I'll pass on to Lesley for that one.
Leslie.
Let's pass it on. Okay, very quickly, just following on for that, because accountability was my one. But basically, let's actually start doing the data and do it properly and seriously. Publish every bit of government data you've got about the cost of programs and track that. If they don't have it, get out there and start tracking that. In other democracies, we see community groups doing that, so that's something that perhaps, again, something like Minderoo could start funding community groups to actually start tracking government performance on these things and get that out there to actually provide that oomph behind that debate.
Brilliant. And you've got 30 seconds, Marina.
by making our rules computer understandable, our laws, our rules can become those data points which can be interrogated, so we can make sure that the policy initiatives find their way right through to the end and hopefully promote a participatory democracy which we all crave and we can achieve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.